I look at it from a number of perspectives. First of all, my parents were part of the generations of people who were born in Jamaica, had previously been colonized by the UK, by Britain, and still regarded themselves very much as British. So when they were when they were invited to the UK, they were invited to the motherland to go and to help restore businesses, organizations, whole industries that were lacking numbers of employees, or had people in the UK, white people, who refused to work in the healthcare industry or the travel industry or the rail industry. So many of my parents' group and their peers moved to the UK in response to that call. For me, being in the UK is always still a challenge. Although the UK has had African people there for generations, and it goes back far as the Roman times, you have African people who were not enslaved, who were living as free people in the UK. So that's well documented. And even though that is documented, in the UK growing up, I was constantly asked, where are you from? And so when you are asked that for a long time, at some point, you start to identify with the other place. So for a while, I would say I'm from Jamaica. I'm Jamaican, and I am Jamaican. I'm also British. I'm also African. Where are you from? Can I touch your hair? Is that your real hair? What kind of food do you eat? Having to navigate those conversations. And then also being in school and having children say to me, we're going home to have tea. And my brain computer going, oh, you're going home to drink tea. Or the next day, them saying to myself, I had a sandwich for dinner. Now, food has always been a very, very important part of my culture. And I'm sure you have the same experience, Obehi. So meals are grand occasions. It doesn't matter how poor you are, there's always a lot of food, and food is often prioritized over other things. So when Caucasians would come to me and say we had a sandwich for dinner, or some canned soup, or something very small. So you're constantly navigating the newness of the culture that you're in, and the familiarity of the culture that I lived at home. So, as I said, lots of big meals, lots of color, both in terms of carpets and wallpapers. And when I look back at images of the homes that we had when I was growing up, you see what people would call clashing colors now. So, wallpapers that didn't match with, devoid of color. The world that we lived in was very devoid of color. So people often in black, brown, gray suits, streets that were colorless, just a very dull feeling of the world. But in our homes, there was always a very lively, dynamic feel, both from the coloring and the music and people coming in and out of the home, loud voices, conversations, always lots going on. So, as a child, I learned to navigate those two worlds. There are consistent messages that come out of communities who go into the UK, and there are also solutions. So when my parents went into the UK, and they were part of what is now referred to as the Windrush generation, when they went into the UK, they were not permitted to rent rooms in lots of houses. So there was a sign that they would often meet at the door which said no blacks, no Irish, and no dogs. So people who were renting their homes would not rent to black people, would not rent to Irish people who were also discriminated against, and they would not rent to people who had dogs. And often now, when people go into Europe, including the UK, they have a similar experience. So if they respond to a general advert to rent a room or to buy a home, because there is a clear discrimination in terms of people who will sell their homes. And this has also been documented in the UK. So there are estate agents who will not show a home in a particular part of England, of London, to groups often from Africa or Asia. The discrimination is very clear, it's very overt. If you want to buy a home in a predominantly Caucasian area, you'll be told it's not available, we don't have the keys, we can't view it today. And if you keep calling, the next thing is that they will tell you it's been sold, even if it hasn't been. So you hear and you know that this exists. So what people have done, as I said, we're creative people, we're innovative. We don't, if somebody says no, then we pop up somewhere else and we come up with our own solutions. So African and Asian people have developed their own estate agents in response to the housing issue. There have been, exclusion rates for Black and brown children in schools because of a lack of understanding or a lack of willingness to take on the differences that we come with, has resulted in vast numbers of students being excluded from school in most boroughs in the UK, particularly London boroughs. So some people have set up their own schools. Some people have chosen to homeschool their children. Some communities have come together where 2, 3, or 4 people have created a small school. But housing has definitely always been a challenge for new arrivals from Africa. Education has been an ongoing challenge, continues to be so. And employment, yes, also. There are lots of civil service organizations who have admitted that they will not recruit to a senior position equivalent to what you're used to, are very, very slim. It may happen eventually, but where you may have access to high-level positions at home, that isn't always possible when you move to the UK because of overt discrimination. The discrimination there continues. And so employment, housing, and education are those areas where it's affected. And also, we can talk about statistics within healthcare practices. More Black women die from childbirth in Europe than white women do. Why is that when they're not sick initially? There are so many statistics that support the overt racism that people from Africa experience when they are in the UK and in the wider European countries.